Good afternoon, fight fans, and welcome to another edition of the MMA Corners post-fight wrap-up show. As today, this afternoon, I guess, we'll be wrapping up Fight Night, Mussasi versus Munoz. And as always, I'm joined by Mr. Pow, Justin Fuller. Justin, how you doing, my man?
Love and life.
So, going to be a fairly short show today because we only have four fights to talk about, and let's kick it off right now. Nicholas Backstrom versus Tom Nikagami. It's a fight that Backstrom, we all thought that he was going to look good, and turned out that he did. He kind of steamrolled right through Nikagami and choked him out really quick in the first round. Justin, what were your thoughts on the fight?
Yeah, I mean, Backstrom just looked great from bell to finish. He got that bulldog choke, first round submission. I mean, he controlled the fight. He landed some big shots. And Tom Ninamaki, he was a tough guy. We've seen him before, but way to make a good debut performance. And I think, this, of course, will not be the last we see of either of these guys. But I'm excited to see what Backstrom adds to the featherweight division. They're in need of some fresh blood. And I think he can be that guy to sort of bring some new energy to the division.
Most definitely. The 45 with Aldo just been, with the way he steamrolled through everything, it's kind of left the division in a state of boringness, I guess would be the best way of putting it. So, hopefully Basham could be the guy to come in there, shake up the division a little bit. But I mean, he's still young, early in his UFC career, so we'll see what happens as he continues to move forward.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying, he's going to be fighting for a title anytime soon, but he's an exciting, fresh new blood, and that's definitely what they need. When you got the champion fighting a guy he dominated not too long ago, you definitely know you need new blood in there to mix things up.
Most definitely, man. Most definitely. So, in the second fight of the main card, we had Sean Strickland defeat Luke Barnett by split decision, which the scores were kind of all over the place for this fight. Justin, I know you have some thoughts on this fight, so I will let you take this one first.
Man, I mean, I love a technical fight as much as anyone, but, I mean, when you got a guy like Barnett who's always known to bring it, and a guy like Strickland who's got a lot of hype behind him coming into this, I want to see some action, and we didn't see that at all. I mean, you could look at it that, Strickland landed he did a good job of, picking his shots, or Barnett was doing better about bringing the fight to him, and he was chasing him down the whole time. I didn't necessarily agree with the decision, but I think I only agree with maybe one of those judges' scorecards. I don't know how you get it for 30-27 either way. So I don't know what fight they were watching, and it's one of those things where going into the scorecards, you kind of knew even whoever wins this isn't exactly going to be in the limelight or in anyone's good graces, but better to get a crappy win than a crappy loss. And so hopefully, we can just call this chalk this up to octagon jitters for Strickland. And with Barnett, we'll have to see what we can get from him again in the future. We've seen him fight before. We've always been impressed with him. So I don't think this will be the end of him by any means. He's got 2 finishes inside the octagon already. We'll see what he does again next.
Most definitely. Barnett, he came into this fight undefeated. This is the first defeat of his career. It's by no means is it time to start writing this guy off. He put up it wasn't an exciting fight, but they did put up a fight. I know you said that you thought that Barnett actually deserved to win the decision.
I did, and people can, they can call me out on it, but at the same time, I mean, it was just one of those fights that I could have done without it either way. I'm not angry about it. I'm more angry about the fact I had to sit through that for 15 minutes. And I mean, I love a slow technical performance when some guys call a boring fight, but I didn't even really see that either. So we'll see. But I did not see the Sean Strickland that everyone made him out to be. So hopefully we can see some more of that in the future, or we'll get proven that, maybe this was a fluke one way or the other. We'll find out, though.
Yeah, we will. So it definitely wasn't the most exciting fight ever, but hey, sometimes these things happen in MMA, right?
Hey, the rest of the card was great. So.
Yes, it was. And in the co-main event, we had CB Dollaway. Hey, and you called this one.
Dollaway, man. Dollaway whooping that ass, man. He brought it, man. He's a guy, man. You can never count him out, man. He came in there focused, motivated, great cardio, controlled that fight beginning to end. Just owned that fight, 30-27 on 2 of the scorecards, and that is not by any means like, oh my God. I mean, he put himself right in another position where he's going to be fighting a top 10 guy. And I don't know if he'll ever be a top 10 guy, a legit top 10 guy that hangs out there, but he can definitely hang in there with him. And he kind of proved, Carmont to, be a little bit more overhyped. And I said this about Carmont before. Carmont got into the top 10 by beating a guy who got into the top 10, who beat a guy who got into the top 10, who had a fluke win over a guy in the top 10. It wasn't like Carmont was had 2 or 3 wins over guys with 4 or 5 straight wins who were ranked and reputable. No, he beat Costa, who beat Bosch, who had that come from behind win against Okami, a fight he was losing that he somehow pulled a TKO out of nowhere. Comeback of the year, it was 2012. So if you look at the lineal ranking that he was going into, I'm just not saying any of these guys didn't deserve to be in the top 10, but none of them had solidified their position in the top 10. So, I just think Dalloway, man, you can't count the guy out. And he's the guy who's, he's not like the gatekeeper. You beat him and you get the title shot, but he's the guy to prove if you're really legit, if you're too legit or too legit to quit.
Nice MC Hammer.
I'm going to be every time I see Dalloway, I'm going to be right here, buddy. Too legit. Too legit to quit. Every time I see him. Too legit. That's for you, buddy. You're too legit.
Oh man, love the old school MC Hammer reference there. Props to you, Justin.
Wow.
So, but man, I was really impressed by Dalloway in this bout, and like you said, he completely just had his way with Carmont. Bell to bell. I don't know how one of the judges found a round to give to Carmont, but we've always bitched about MMA judging after every event, but yeah, I mean, Dalloway's definitely. I think he's definitely put himself in a position to where he should be fighting the upper echelon of the division. I mean, Carmont, he was already a top 10 guy coming in this fight, but like you said, he beat a bunch of people that probably didn't deserve to be in the positions they were at to get into the position where he was at. So, Dalloway, I'm loving this career resurgence from him as of late. As with Carmont, maybe he's, not what we thought he was. Maybe, I think you called it, man. The hype train's real. Well,
hey, man,
actually,
you know
maybe
what
the hype train's not real.
This is the year of the resurrection, okay? And I wish they would go back to when they would have names for their big events, UFC 98, Repentance or whatever, right? Because when you look at that big Fox card coming up with Brown versus Lawler, it should be called UFC on Fox Resurrection. Because these are 2 guys that 2 years ago everyone counted out. And Dalloway could be that guy for the middleweight division. He could be that guy who's always been around, that journeyman of the division, a staple there. And then this could be his run. We could see him go on a tear and put together 4 more straight ones, put him at 6-0 in his last 6, and people are like, where the fuck did Dalloway come from? I don't know. I'm not saying he's going to, but this could be his moment, and we seem to be seeing it left and right all over the fucking UFC this year. So let's keep that fucking train rolling.
Absolutely, man. It has been the year of the resurrection, and you put it out beautifully. Robbie Lawler, Matt Brown, both these guys, they, a couple of years ago, they were completely written off. Nobody thought anything was going to happen with them, and look at them now. They're both knocking on the door for a title shot, and who knows? With a couple more solid victories, CB Dalloway could definitely be in that position as well. So, but main event of the evening, Gegard Mousasi. We finally saw the Gegard Mousasi that had people clamoring to see him in the UFC. He had an opponent in front of him who brought the fight, and Mousasi just completely, he just tooled him, for lack of a better term. I mean, he just completely owned Munoz. It wasn't even close. I mean, Munoz had that one spot in the fight where it was early in the fight. He picked up Mousasi, and he tried to dunk him on his head, and Mousasi just completely turned it on him right there. And that was the point of the fight where knew that Mousasi, he was not messing around. He was not, he was coming out to, make a statement, say, hey, I came in here with all this hype. I am ranked where I am. I deserve to be where I'm at. I deserve to be higher. And he put on the performance of his UFC career, in my opinion, the way he just wrecked the Filipino wrecking machine.
Yeah, definitely. And I think what we're gonna see, I mean, he's at 11, but he's ranked 11 right now because he was 0-1 in the division, and 1-1 in the UFC going into that fight. The only reason he was ranked 11 is just because we haven't seen enough of him in the UFC. But you just decimated the number 7 guy. I think he should be right there at number 6 or 7, honestly, especially when you look at his pedigree coming into this fight. And I think, I mean, not a lot. I mean, there's really only a handful of guys in that whole division or in the UFC as a whole that can go 5 rounds with Machida and not get knocked out. So, I don't think there's any shame in that. And even though he got controlled in that fight, it wasn't like, he was on the brink of getting finished at any moment. And I could definitely see guys like Jacques, like Rockhold or Kennedy, or Bisping not even making it to 5 rounds with Machida. So I'm betting he's going to at least be ranked at number 7. As far as Munoz goes, I think we've seen the best of him. I think that loss to Weidman still kind of, put some damage on him. And I don't know where we see him go from here. There's a lot of fights for him still in the division, but what is he? He's 36 years old. I mean, he should really start considering other things. Brian Stan, he kind of did that too. He was like, look, he was still right there around the top 10, and he said, you know what, this is a good time for me to make the exit. I'm never getting a title shot. So I don't know what Munoz has lined up or if he still has that fire to compete, but I mean, he just can't hang in there with the elite of them. He might have been that good at one point, but I think everyone else is kind of passing him by. And I like seeing him fight. I just don't want to see him get hurt. So we'll have to see where he goes from there. But I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what the UFC wants to do. We'll see what he wants to do. As far as Mousasi goes, I mean, he mentioned a couple names, not trying to call anyone out, but I mean, it's wide open for him. Let's, if Sonnen beats up Vidor, well, let's have him fight Sonnen because I guess Vidor's still guaranteed his title shot, but Sonnen may or may not get a title shot with that win. So there's a good matchup in my book.
Yeah, man, I would take that fight any day, And on our pre-fight show, we talked about Munoz and about how he probably didn't even deserve the position he was at because the biggest win of his career came like 3 years ago whenever he beat Damian Maia. And he looked lackluster since that. I mean, of course, he had the victory over Tim Bosch, who, like you said, probably didn't deserve the position he was in as it was. But his career had been kind of a roller coaster, I mean, he was fighting injuries, but he never. I don't think he ever put together a run where he deserved to be ranked at number 7 to begin with.
Yeah, I mean, I think like going into that Weidman fight, he was definitely top 5, but losing to the champion and the guy fighting the champion right now, in my book, doesn't mean you should be ranked just below those guys. Like, I know some people when they do their rankings, they look at who you fought, and I always take into consideration who you fought, but the guy who's beat 6 nobodies and knocked them out, in my book, is always going to be ranked higher than the guy who's 3-3, but he lost to 3 somebodies. I'm like, yeah, he fought somebodies, but he never beat a somebody. So that doesn't automatically put him higher in my book. I always measure performance, and I go off the assumption that the UFC, like regardless of where your billing is on the card, like everyone in the UFC is a legitimate opponent for you, and I always grade guys off their performance inside the octagon and their opponent's performance, how well they've done inside the octagon at that moment. So I'm never going to give a guy an advantage just because he's fighting someone more popular. Because if you're fighting a guy who's 4-2 with 4 straight wins, I don't care how popular he is, but he's got 4 straight wins in the UFC, that's a legit opponent to me. You beat him, but you fight. So, I mean, I don't think that win against Damian Maia should be overlooked because Maia was 2 wins after his loss to Silva, and that was a big win. Like, Maia was right there still in the top 3 division or so. But then, he had that win over Lieben, and where was he at that? Like, Lieben was, coming off that knockout over Wanderlei, but right before they had that loss to Brian Stan, so we didn't really expect much. I think we pretty much knew who was going to win that. but he's still up there because the guys he lost to before tonight are the best two in the division. And that's why he's there. And I'm not saying he doesn't deserve number 7, but after tonight, we're probably going to see him at that number, maybe number 10, because Carmont's not keeping that number 9 spot, that's for sure.
Yeah, he's definitely not. So, but
yeah, Holloway's not even in the official top 15. That's the crazy part about it. I want to point that out right now, okay? TV Holloway's not even in the official top 15.
Well, I think that after this afternoon's performance, we'll be seeing Holloway in the top 15, somewhere in the mix there. So, I mean, he just looked way too good to be denied. But anyway, that about wraps up everything. That's the main card. Justin, what are your final thoughts on the card? What did you think about the event overall?
Great event. Aside from the one boring fight with Strickland and Barnott, good. You know, we got a couple finishes. We got to see CB Holloway just bring the wrecking train to the Frenchman, Carmont. And, you know, we saw Mousasi solidify himself in the division, get a little bit of, you know, resurgence after that loss to Machida, and put himself in a much better position to be fighting some of these top guys. So it could be some of his other Strikeforce imports, because that's really the only guys coming off of wins that don't have a fight, you know, that are ranked above him, you know. So I don't know, man. We might see him. You know what? I'd actually kind of like to see him go in there and mix it up with like Yoel Romero. I don't know if he doesn't have a fight right now. He's coming off that win over Brad Tavares. You know, he's 4-0 in the UFC right now. I know Mousasi wants one of those guys in the upper end, but let's give him one more. The division's really stacked right now, so I don't, you know, I mean, there's no rush for him. Let's have him fight like Yoel Romero and see what happens with that, because, you know, I know guys like Rockhold and Kennedy, they kind of want to fight, you know, guys that have been in the UFC for a while. They're not really looking to fight other Strikeforce guys just because they've done it before. So,
right, and that's the fight that I could totally get behind, and I would not argue one bit if that was put together. But if you did miss the undercard, go back on Fight Pass and watch Maximo Blanco and Andy Ogle, because that was just a really, really fun fight. I don't know if it was fight of the night, but it was just a really good, fun fight to watch. So if you missed it, pony up $10, get Fight Pass, and go watch that fight. So, but that's going to wrap it up for today's edition. It was the post-fight show for Mousasi versus Munoz. We'll be back on Thursday night to give you our preview for UFC 174. So until then, as our host Josh Davis would say, keep living the MMA Corner lifestyle.